learning. We are going to have our next speaker. Starting from AMD as an intern, he has actually led amazing projects in IBM. And today, we have seen one presentation from Hishab, right? How many of you have been there? All of you, right? Fascinating. I am personally impressed. So I'm inviting on stage the person as the co-founder of Hishab, who had been the CIO and CTO of Hishab as well. Cheng, please come up on stage and tell us about your understanding on AI and deep learning. Welcome, Cheng.
Thank you. I'm happy to give the stage to you. I think, yeah, Chaudhry, do you want to help me out here? So I think this is an often talked about topic. So I think my mentor, when he was telling me about AI, it's kind of like teenage sex. Everybody talks about it, but nobody knows really how to do it. So what is AI? I mean, most of the time we have a lot of pictures, so I like Terminator, right? He's pretty cool. And what we hope to do is that AI has been around for the last 70 years. But what has happened over time is that Moore's law has increased the number of transistors we have. That has twofold effect. One, our processing power has increased. Two, our memory prices have dropped. This has enabled AI and algorithms to actually increase in terms of the capability, and it's now become more commonplace. And I think the last few years of cloud computing has actually allowed AI to reside somewhere else without people having the capex to spend all their money on hardware. So if you are able to just spin up a system on, say, AWS or Microsoft Azure, then it becomes a lot cheaper for everybody to have AI. Now, what we intend to do is to go one step further and to use that system and give people the opportunity to have speech recognition. And I will go through some examples, some applications, and some of my main pain points in running this particular endeavor. So maybe I'll start off with machine learning. So there are two types, supervised learning and unsupervised learning. And in terms of supervised learning, as the picture shows, it's very disciplined. You need to spend money and time to go and label your data set. So what do I mean by labeling the data set? If you have, say, pictures, Microsoft has this amazing capability whereby they can look at a picture and tell you, hey, there's a dog, there's a cat, but before that, there are some poor suckers who have to label the data, this is a cat, this is a dog. And you might get situations like this. Can anyone tell the difference between the muffin and the dog? Humans may not be able to sometimes, but machines can. And I'll go on to explain why this is so and how this is possible. So for unsupervised learning, it's a mess. Or not really a mess, but I think my understanding of it is that, they will get whatever data there is, they don't know what it is, but somehow they're able to cluster it and define patterns. And from these patterns, they need human intuition. You still need a human brain at the end of the day. You still need the Bangladeshi boy to figure out, hey, what exactly are these patterns? So for this, I'm really sorry. I didn't have much sleep, so I didn't quite figure out what is a good example of it. But I will go on to explain some of the other things in AI. So one possible application of this, I believe, is like, say, the self-driving cars. So if you keep collecting data and you keep seeing the same feature sets within the pictures, and you need somebody to tag those feature sets and those objects, then it becomes easier for the cars to learn. So you have unsupervised learning first, and then after that, you're able to define what those objects are in reality. So what is deep learning? So this is a subset of machine learning, and this gets thrown around a lot. So I will try my best to explain it to the crowd who is extremely sleepy from a heavy lunch. So if anyone is snoring, that's okay. So essentially what deep learning is, all you need to remember is that there's an input, which is on your left, and then there's an output on your right. And in between, you will have a lot of layers. Now, depending on how much money you have, how deep your pockets go, determines the number of layers you have. What I mean by that is that you can have as many layers as you want, but the amount of time that it takes to process, that is the pain. So until quantum computers become a reality, and we have to live with existing hardware, it's not recommended to have that many layers, especially if you're not solving a problem that's too difficult. So just to give you an example, so this was from NVIDIA. So what happens is if I have a face, we would break it down, and it will have features. These features are lines, And these lines will make up mid-level features, which may be somewhere along this set of layers. These low-level features would be along the first set of layers. So when they're pieced together, you will see eyes, nose, ears. And then after that, at the high-level feature, before its output, it will come together. And the machines would put it all together to say, hey, we recognize this face. We recognize this person. Or we recognize this object, this dog, this cat. So what exactly have we tried to do at Hishab? For now, we're trying to build an automatic speech recognition system. And trust me, Bengali is an extremely difficult language to master. So I keep telling all the guys, and they've heard this joke to the deaf, the only Bengali word I've learned so far is alu. Because one, I get to be fed, and two, it's simple. It's 2 syllables, right? And I'll go on to explain what are some of the challenges that I have with building this automatic speech recognition. The other thing is, once we have that coming in, so we've digitized voice, a frequency, to a string of text, to a sentence. What is the next thing that we want to do in order to fulfill our dreams of an enterprise resource planning system? We need to be able to tokenize that system and populate the words into a back end. So what do I mean by that? So simply put, if you have a system which can determine male-female in your data schema, that can be male-female, it can be 1001 MF. I will need to figure out how to map that to your back end to make sure things work. Now, this is a very simplistic way of looking at it, but it's also something that we're working at. So on a very high level, on a very simplistic implementation, we're looking at something called regular expression to just get this done, because it's easy, it's fast, and that's where we're at the moment. So how does this benefit people? So a few things. One, definitely reduce labor costs. So in order for us to drive down our costs and become operationally profitable, having transcribers, no matter how cheap the labor cost in Bangladesh is, it's still very expensive. It's still more expensive than spending electricity and renting cloud out from, say, Azure or AWS. The other thing is, machines don't make mistakes, as long as the people programming it doesn't make mistakes. So in essence, there is perfect accuracy, of course, once the AI is properly trained. And the best part is that there is beta data accuracy over time, as long as your data comes in. So the one key thing I want all of you to take away, if anything, like just wake up now, if you want to build artificial intelligence into your companies, remember, data hygiene is important. So start cleaning out your data now. Things like, wrong spellings or things are not being mapped properly, get those changed. Because over time, you're building the foundation to building a great company with a great product that can be powered by AI. In terms of applications, one of the key things, if you go to a Coursera, it's normally about houses. So what are the features in houses? If we were to figure out how to sell a house at a specific price, if you're a real estate agent, how many rooms are there? Which district is it in? How many toilets does it have? How many garages does it hold? And from there, this is the most basic AI. It's just a straight line after you've plotted all the dots. That's it. And if you have a separate, if your house, say, falls within, okay. If your house falls within here, you roughly know, okay, maybe it's around this price, because that's what my model is dictating. Yeah? And that is really the simplest AI, and this is linear regression. Or if you're in the FMCG business, you're able to use computer vision to figure out, going back to the point, you break down the features, make the mid features, have the high-end features, and you're able to recognize these particular products on your shelf. And this is what Amazon's doing with the Kiva robots. So right now, my biggest challenge, it's not so much the algorithms, it's more of the data collection and really talking to the folks on the ground. It's an operational issue. And then the second thing is, after collecting the data, I'm not the most qualified person to understand the Bengali words spoken. So I listened to the whole set of 1,000, and I was like, this one sounds different. And then I call up the guys like, hey, this sounds different. Can you please recollect the data? And it's a work in progress. So AI would always start, continue to improve like an actual baby, like an actual human. And over time, we're hoping that we can open source this corpus so that we can give back to research, so that the Bengali language is also given the prominence that it deserves in a lot of the NLP studies. And that's it, really. Thank you. Thank you.
Saying something like, the pure Bengal words, which is in Bangla called Promito Bangla.
So accents.
Accents.
Okay. So in terms of, say, speech recognition, normally accents doesn't really play a part. What you're looking at is phonemes. So phonemes are the most basic broken down structure inside the word, the sound of the word. So at that frequency, it will look the same. So technically, accents doesn't really play that much of a part, to my understanding.
Other than that, there are some words that are pretty different in different region of Bangladesh. Like there is water, we call in Bangla pani. Some area in Bangladesh called fani. But just something is really different from the pure Bengali Promito Bangla words.
Okay.
So how can the machine define those kinds of words if it is a mass level? If you want to cover the mass level Bangladeshi people with your Hishab software.
So one of the key things is that, one, I need to understand what the application is. So from Hishab's perspective, I would do a simple mapping. So like pagi and the other word, I would both map them out to the meaning water, because it's just a one-to-one mapping. It makes no difference whether at the end of the day, how it's being spoken, because that's what I need as an inventory, as a part number, as a SKU.
And then there will be lots of backup words for one single word. And that is how you can come up with the solution.
I'm sorry?
I want to say that if in that case you have to have lots of substitute words or similar words
Yes.
to come up with the solution.
So I think in NLP, normally this is something known as stemming. So even in English, you may have, say, tenses behind your word, like I walked, I am walking. But all this goes back to the root word of walk. So essentially, that is what I will intend to do with say, the different variations of the word water. So still go back to a root word with a root meaning, because it will still capture the essence of what is being delivered.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I hope that answered your question.
I assume he tried to ask what happens in terms of synonyms. Not the same water, watered, watering, but if one word that has got quite too many synonyms. So maybe that's what he tried to ask. Like,
So that's what I'm saying. In terms of application, right? If you have synonyms in terms of noun, for Hishab's application, we do not really require that level of detail. We're looking at it from a product point of view, like I have a bottle of water.
okay.
So it makes no difference to me whether it's called water or it's called liquid. At the end of the day, that product is the same product.
Okay.
But if there's a different application for natural language processing to understand context, then yeah, I would need to figure out a different way to approach that problem.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
I want to ask one question. Is there any similar application in accounts or this kind of numerical accuracy in English?
I'm sorry, could you?
Is there any similar application with English language which has the same kind of accuracy required?
I don't.
Is there any same kind of application available in English language?
Yep.
Which needs same kinds of accuracy?
Same kind of accuracy.
Yeah, like numerical calculation, you need to be very accurate.
So in terms of the accuracy, so think about it in two things, okay? One of them is the speech recognition. So that digitizes speech to a sentence. What we're talking about here is the natural language processing component, which is already digitized. It's a sentence that's digitized, and we need to figure out how to interpret it by the machine. So if you're talking about accuracy, from a user experience point of view, any voice user interface at least needs to be 99.99% accurate. If not, it's very painful. Like imagine you are using Siri or you're using Google Home, and it only works 1 out of 5 times. You're not going to use it. And that is already 80% accuracy. So think about that. So unless you have like 99.99% accuracy and you may have problems 1 every 10,000 times, yeah, so on a speech recognition level, I would say we need to reach there.
Yeah, that is what I'm asking. Is there any English language system available now?
Yeah. So if you go to Google, I'm sorry, I think we're being sponsored by Microsoft. I'm not as familiar as your product. But for Google, I understand that they have a ML, they open source their speech API. So there's a whole list of languages available there. English is one of them,
Yeah,
and they
but
have it in different accents.
It's not very accurate if you speak little bit in a different way. That's what I'm asking. If I want to use it in my calculation, I really will not trust Google or this kind of engine, you know. That's what I'm asking.
Sorry,
Thank
I
you.
don't
Just move on to
quite
the next
follow.
question. Sorry, can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'm interested in Hishab, but I think just for the audience more, I think it's to broaden the discussion on AI as well. So I wanted to ask a question about, actually related to your experience at IBM Watson. So one of the things that, I'm also involved in an AI health business as we were discussing, but what is your perspective or what is your view about global AI systems? IBM Watson is the most famous natural language processing AI system. Obviously, Google and Microsoft and other global technology companies are developing, Amazon developing AI systems,
right.
and they're trying to. There's a debate about how much AI can be done in the cloud. So, Hishab you're trying to customize it locally. So, what is your thoughts on, these global AI systems and how easily they're going to be implemented in countries like Bangladesh versus having to
Right.
localize and customize?
Okay, so a few things. One, AI is a term that's being thrown around a lot. I would say buyer beware, do your due diligence to understand exactly what you're getting yourself into. Second of all, once again, depending on your application and industry, if you're in healthcare space, there's legislation behind where your data is being kept. A lot of the data centers may not be in Bangladesh. So therefore, would you be equivalent of HIPAA compliant in Bangladesh? Are you able to keep patient data within the boundary and borders of Bangladesh? Maybe not, because the closest data center for AWS or Microsoft or Google is all out in India, Bangalore. So if that's the case, then what would be your solution to bypass that particular constraint and still be able to serve your population here in Bangladesh? So that would be more of a legislative problem versus an algorithm problem. So in terms of algorithms, it's very basic. The AI has been around since 1940s, so I don't think it's a big issue. It's just how much money you're willing to throw at the problem, and how much data set, how clean is your data. But there's a lot of other challenges whereby what's the best approach? What are the legislations that are stopping things? And who would be the best partner that can grow your business after the use of AI? Yeah.
Yeah. So I have one question. So in case of Hishab, you are using Bangla voice recognition and system. So do you follow certain pattern for when you take the user input from the local users, or the users can say anything in Bangla about accounting and stuff, and that gets translated using your algorithm?
We want to reach that stage, but being really realistic, right now the roadmap that I have is we've trained numbers. So the numbers actually work. I have a 94% accuracy. It's not where I want it to be, but for 0 to 9 in Bengali, it works. And then the next stage is to train nouns, because nouns are universal across all languages. And frankly, I just don't understand enough Bengali to be able to do it on my own. So I've broken up the words to be able to build the speech recognition. What you're asking for right now is really where I want to be, maybe hopefully end of this year, because it involves a natural language component. And I don't understand enough about the grammar to do much about it at the moment. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay, can we take one more, one last question?
Could I?
Yeah.
Yeah. Please don't make it too difficult.
There is an interesting perspective in terms of, I can see the complication involved in speech recognition, etc. So what I see in my presentation, I said the human power is very important.
Yep.
Do you see the AI companies can utilize this, for example, in terms of speech recognition, where you provide the incentive for the participants to sample the data from them and say certain speeches that you can't recognize, but you collect from the people themselves to say what you think it is. And the incentive may be they get extra credit on their phone bill or something. Do you think something will be utilized as an AI? Because this is where you get the loss of data for your machine learning to learn and be more accurate.
So this is actually something that we were toying around with, and of course it depends on the amount of VC funding or investment that we get, because it's cost for the R&D to be able to run this sort of projects. What's challenging is that if we were to do this and we scale it up, of course we get a lot of data. It will be labeled properly by the participants, like a game. So we could run it as a gamification platform. Like I said, at the end of it, we hope to open source this corpus so that more people can actually use it and do their own research with it. Yeah.
Hi, one more question. How do you see these different AI systems coming together in the future? So there's another company out there doing AI on voice recognition for Bangladeshi. Can that come together with yours in the future so you can take both inputs, or are you building a discrete system? And do you see any way that these are going to be standardized or be able to come together, or they exist as their own islands?
So I think what you're asking for is essentially if you Google or YouTube, like Siri versus Alexa. That's kind of something what you're asking for. And it would probably come up with some form of gibberish, in my opinion. Because AI with AI, there's no human behind to tell them exactly what is the end goal. And I'm not sure what the end product would be, because right now AI has to be extremely specific. It has to be given a goal, like kill Sarah Connor. That has to be the goal. Unless that is given, it's not really at the intellect level whereby it's able to come up with something new. So even the interesting case studies whereby AI can create music or poetry, it is a very specific task and it cannot do anything else. So the only company that I know who is trying to work on general purpose AI is Google DeepMind. And even then, I think they are only playing games. And that is the specific purpose. Yeah. Thank you very much.
I have an observation, not a question.
Okay.
You are trying to launch this product in Bangladesh.
Yes.
Right? So we have seen that before. This is nothing new, that a system which has been developed by some very high-tech team from anywhere in the world and trying to implement that thing locally. It's not a it's a kind of caution to you, because the importance of local presence is extremely important. That your team members are grounded here. They understand the local culture. Because as I've seen in your demo and others, that it is NLP based. Bangla is a very peculiar language. So the people from where you're going to get the feedback, these have got a lot of cultural component. If those things are not captured in your earlier model, even if you refine that, by the time you go to market, the market segment will totally change. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your feedback.